Larry North has been helping people become healthier for over 25 years. He's done this with 3 best-selling books, seminars, and gyms. These people were no different than you. The only difference is they chose to make a change in their life. Now it's your turn. Don't put it off any longer. Let Larry help you become an even better you. Here's Larry North.
Hey everyone, this is Larry North. This is the Better You Show. My guest today is a good friend of mine. He's been a guest for many years. Ironically, my guest, John Duncan, who's a PhD, by the way, who's done decades of research, worked at the world-renowned Cooper Clinic here locally, has been the owner and operator of ViaScan, which is like literally the most advanced technology that you could ever use for a diagnostic testing to find out how healthy your heart is. But what's really cool, John, I guess you've been my Valentine guest. Literally, my sort of like my Valentine date in a sense that you've been on my show. This is the 3rd year in a row, and it worked out so perfectly that you were available to come in today, the week before Valentine. How you doing, man?
I'm doing great, Larry, and it's an honor to be on your show every Valentine.
Well, thanks. And you know, the thing is, and here's what's like amazing. Each time you've been on my show, and this is probably 6th or 7th, I haven't counted, but we've saved people's lives. We've literally had at least one person, maybe more, that have come in, thought, you know, maybe I should do one of these scans. By the way, I've done a scan. Brenda's done a scan. You were talking about the guy who does the voiceover work here. He's done a scan, Bob Hathaway. You've done, how long have you been in business now?
Since 2001.
How many scans do you think you've done?
Oh, my goodness. That's a good question. It's got to be 30, 40,000, maybe more.
30, 40,000. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And you know what's interesting? And we'll talk a little bit about what ViaScan does, but are we making a dent in heart disease right now? Because due in part thanks to you, by the way, I'm on the board of the Diabetes Association here locally. And so what's so interesting about that, and I'll tell you why because you have educated me, an educated guest, on heart health. And it's amazing. I think one time you said, every one of us will know somebody close to us that has been affected by heart disease or a heart attack. By golly, John, I'm getting older, and in the last 60 days, 4 friends of mine have had heart attacks. John, 2 are no longer living.
It's a statistic that we can do better at. American Heart says that 1 out of every 4 Americans have heart disease. And sadly, we don't find out about it until it's too late, when the options are stents, bypass, or in the case of your friend, sudden death. That's a symptom that we have no cure for. So your best prevention is early detection of this process so that we can treat it and maintain your good health rather than trying to regain it once it's lost.
Right. Well, here's the thing. So, for example, I've got maybe 50, 60 employees. We're Blue Cross Blue Shield. John, I got to tell you, I got a $10,000 deductible for everyone. You know, it's still, and my insurance still has increased 18% year over year. Like I can't, why? And so here's the thing. Even sort of minimal diagnostic testing at your doctor or at the local hospital, you're talking thousands of dollars. So I think what happens is a lot of people just ignore it. They just don't want to pay the doctor fees.
Oh, I think that's right. I think fundamentally in America today, healthcare is anything but about health, and no one seems to care. And that's the problem. There's no focus on prevention. It's all on intervention. Why is that? Healthcare in America is about profit and not the people. It's not about prevention. So until we get that as a focus, there's many things that are good in America. We're a capitalist society. But with the hyper focus on profits and money, when we take that to the healthcare system, it doesn't work. It leaves too many people out.
It's like this, John. So the way I look at it, and correct me if I'm wrong, like if you have an emergency, like if you're in a car accident or you get a broken arm or you have some sort of catastrophe that just maybe fell off a ladder, this is the best country to be in. You go to the emergency. This is the best country to be in for that type of health care.
Right.
But when it comes to like regular health care, like for your heart or diabetes or just depression, you're better off being in another country, I think.
Well, I think the statistics don't lie. The statistics say that almost 18% of GDP in America is spent on health care. Now, the question is, what are we getting return on that investment? Are we living longer? Not hardly. Those same statistics say that we're in the middle of the pack. The ones that are living the longest in the world spend relatively the least amount of their money per GDP on health care. So it's not about how much you spend. The focus is on profits and not prevention in people. The doctors are not the problem. They're well-intentioned, but they're only doing what the system is set up to do, which is to reward and treat people with advanced disease. So when you find out when it's about heart disease, it's too late. It's not the doctor's fault. They're only doing what they're getting paid to do. The focus needs to shift from intervention and advanced disease detection to early preventative care.
Now, for people just tuning in, John, because I know you, they may not. So John Duncan, who's a PhD for decades, did research on this subject. Can we go backwards a little bit? Can we go back in time to your research days? What got you so amazingly passionate about this subject?
Well, it's the science of it, Larry. Science doesn't lie. And when you look at the fundamentals of what it takes to age healthy, to age well, and to avoid serious life-threatening propositions, it's really pretty simplistic. Dr. Cooper got it right back in the 60s and 70s when he advocated that exercise is medicine. Not only was he right, the statistics support that it's the most powerful medicine. And let me tell you the statistic that is associated with that. Published in the American Medical Association back in the 90s, I was part of a team at the Cooper Clinic that we reported a 60% lower death rate from not just a heart attack, Larry, but from any cause of death in people that were physically active 5 days a week.
That's amazing.
What pill do the medical community have that reduces your risk of dying just from a heart attack 60%, let alone from any cause?
Just about.
Yeah.
And people need to understand, John, we're in 2018. It's almost 30 years ago.
Oh, that's right.
30 years ago.
Well,
and like you say, and you go back to the 60s and 70s and 80s, a lot of people in the medical community, they thought Dr. Cooper was sort of nuts. They thought he was out of his mind.
And some still do. And it's because their focus is on disease care, and they're not focused on preventative public health message. And so it's a three-legged stool, Larry. Exercise, physical activity doesn't need to be strenuous. You don't have to be a marathon runner. You don't have to run a 100-yard dash. Just go out and take a brisk walk 5 days a week, 35 minutes. Simple.
You know what? I've sort of I did 2 presentations yesterday. You would have loved it. And as you know, I'm heavily involved and heavily immersed in optimal hormones.
Right.
I just feel that there's a big role in better health, and they have the same core value system as you, John. They really do. Everything you're saying, they validate, and they want people to be healthier, and a lot of the science is old. But I say, listen, optimal hormones, move your body.
Right.
Eat.
Right.
Eat. Use food in your favor to ignite your metabolism. And there's a fourth prong. A little bit of knowledge.
Yes.
Listen to people like John Duncan, to Ken Cooper. Tune into radio shows for 5 or 10 minutes.
Right.
And maybe we could probably, with you and I, we could probably add a fifth leg of be a little proactive.
Yes.
Take a little bit of charge of your life, because I do want to talk about ViaScan also, because you're doing all this research in the 80s, in the 90s. You practice what you preach. You're a runner, and all of a sudden, like, how'd you discover like a better way?
Well, out of frustration. When we had the stress test at the time that we were doing them.
Which was that the gold standard back then?
Well, it was innovative. I mean, you got to understand the progression. Back in the 60s, basically, the way we found you had heart disease, you had a heart attack. We got a call from the coronary care unit in the hospital. Your patients had a heart attack. So that's how we found out. It's kind of late to find out about that, because a third of those people, they died. And so we didn't get to treat those. And so we learned that it was very imperfect, the situation we had with the resting EKG. So we came up with, Dr. Cooper invented sort of the stress test, which was better.
So
than,
he invented that?
Well, I don't know whether we could credit that he invented it, but he was very prolific.
He was at the front
end. He was a pioneer, I think we could say.
Right.
At the very least.
By the way, if you're just listening and you're not familiar with the Cooper Clinic, they're world renowned. They're right here in Dallas, Texas,
absolutely,
right off Preston Road. I drive by it every day, actually.
You know, he's still phenomenal. He's aged because he's practiced what he's preached, and he's aged very well. It was a great opportunity.
By the way, his wife's name's Millie, right?
Yes.
Because I know Millie. Because one day I was at a big charity event.
Yes.
And I walked by her table, and she goes, "Larry." I turn around. I go, "Oh, well, that's Mrs. Cooper." She goes, "I love your show." So she was a listener to the show.
Well, she has been right beside him all these years, and she's been a participant and practiced what he's preached as well. They're an awesome couple, and they've done a lot of people a world of good.
Well, John, I think what's happened, a lot of people have no idea the rich, high-octane resources that have been developed through North Texas.
Oh, I think that's true and continue to be. So to carry on the story, the stress test was less than ideal because we would get calls from people that passed the stress test, and a week or two later they got a heart attack. And so we soon discovered that it was far from perfect, that it would do a very good job on finding people that had advanced disease, 70, 80, 90, 100% blockage that needed stents or bypass, but it would never pick up problems that was less than that. And what we found in research and has been published by the American Heart Association, 2/3 of all heart attacks occur in people that have blockages that would never be picked up on stress tests.
Well, we're going to help a lot of people, and here's the beautiful part of what you do. You're so passionate, and you're so intelligent. You have so much research and data and science to back up everything you say. My guest is John Duncan. He's a friend of mine. He's also the owner and founder of ViaScan, which we'll get into that a lot in the upcoming show. And I'm going to ask you to do me a favor. We've been Facebook Live. Why don't you do me a huge favor and tune in to KRLD. It's 1080, and we're going to switch from Facebook Live, and we're going to go actually live on radio the rest of the show. John, thank you for being here. When we come back, I want to find out some simple steps that people could take to be a little bit more on the preventative side. And then also in the show, I do want to hear stories. I want to hear stories of people that have flown in to have a ViaScan, and instead of just going back to their hotel, they maybe had to go directly from your office to the hospital, but you're saving lives. So John Duncan's my guest. Larry North is your host, and I hope you guys are doing great. And we'll be right back right here on KRLD. Hey everyone, Larry North here on KRLD. I hope you're having a beautiful evening. I've got my good friend John Duncan, PhD, from ViaScan, and we're just, it's interesting, John, because you do get, and I say this in a good way, you get worked up because you're so passionate about this, and this is your life. It's what you do. I didn't realize you did close to 40,000 ViaScans since you started your company.
Easily, yeah. It's kind of a calling, I view that I'm a servant. I'm here to serve people. And Larry, the nice thing about it is we have the most advanced technology in the world. There's only 65 of these scanners in the world. There's only 2 in Texas, one at Herman Memorial Hospital in Houston, pretty famous hospital, and mine.
And Trump had to have a ViaScan, I assume.
They all do. From President Bush Sr. started getting one done in the 80s, and every president subsequently has one done. Dr. Cooper kind of had a hand in that. He took care of W and had scanned, and then they had a scanner installed at Walter Reed, so every president that gets the annual physical, and you might have read in the paper that Trump had his heart scanned. They all do.
Right.
And it's the most advanced technology in the world.
And here what's interesting is because, like, for example, I was in your office one day before I was getting my scan, and I struck up a conversation with a guy, and he was early 70s,
Mm-hmm.
and John, he was fit. He still participates in Ironman. competitions.
I get a lot of that.
So he participated, but he was getting a scan, but he had already had a scan, and he was very open. He recognized me. He's like, "You're Larry North, the radio guy," and I said, "Yes." And he goes, "I'm a marathon runner. I'm a cyclist. I'm a swimmer. I've been doing this for many years. I still compete in Ironmans at my age." And he goes, "But I've got some blockage." He goes, "And you wouldn't have thought that, but I just am proactive. I went to get a ViaScan, and so John's going to give me some guidance." So here's a guy that does triathlons,
sure,
and thin and handsome, sure, and just debonair, but yet he was at risk.
Sure. Well, and that's the beauty of the scan, Larry, is it's not scary to have plaque, or it's not scary to have blockage. It's scary if you don't know it and don't treat it, because that's going to cause problems. What we're finding in research is it's not the 80, 90, 100% blockages that people think of that causes heart attack. It's the minimal 30, 40, 50% blockages. And what happens is those plaques rupture, and then they float downstream like an iceberg, and they block blood flow to that particular area. Kaboom, a heart attack. So the key is to prevent any plaques that you have from rupturing. But before you can prevent it from rupturing, you got to know, do I have a plaque? So step one, get a scan. Do I have plaque? Step two, if I have plaque, treat it so that plaque is stable, it doesn't crack or break off and rupture. And if you have a blockage, you can live to be 100 with a blockage. The key is you want to prevent it from rupturing or breaking off. And so that comes with treatment. And then we monitor it to make sure it doesn't keep growing 40% a year with people that don't know it and don't get treated. So if we can keep it from growing and stop it from breaking off and causing a heart attack, I think you check two boxes, win-win.
Right.
You die of old age.
Right. And you know what's interesting? The people that, because you're going to have one of two things happen. If you get a heart attack, you could die, or you end up in a hospital. There's no other alternative there.
Right.
It's one or the other.
That's right.
What's interesting is some that don't die, it can often serve as a serious wake-up call.
It does. But, I'm not worried about the ones that get the wake-up call. I'm worried about the ones that don't wake up.
Right. That's well said. Well said. And what's interesting as well, and we'll talk a little bit about this, is how big of a role diet obviously plays into it, exercise plays into it. We'll talk about how long does it take to get the scan, how expensive it is. Is there a Valentine sort of special offer to KRLD listeners?
Always to Larry's North Show, always have specials.
I do know this. You have, if not saved the lives of my listeners, you've come darn close. And we'll talk about that and much more. So you can stick around the rest of the show, right?
You bet.
All right. John Duncan's my guest. We're talking about really heart health. Real quickly, though, and I want to talk about, don't answer the question, but I read recently that women have more fatalities, 10 times more than those of breast cancer. So it's a big women's issue. As we know, we have a big Go Red here locally, and the American Heart Association's got a big presence in Dallas, Texas. A lot of money gets donated. I'm sure you have a good relationship with those folks. But John Duncan's my guest, and we'll come back and talk about your heart health during this Valentine's weekend. Good evening, everyone. You're listening to KRLD with Larry North. This is the Better You Show. And one of our commitments in 2018 are to just bring a ton of wonderful resources and experts right to you. And one of my experts, good friend who's been on the show many, many times, is John Duncan. And did for years, really some brilliant, groundbreaking research at the World Renowned Cooper Clinic. Has had ViaScan, and obviously you knew the value of the scan, and as did Dr. Cooper, and do many places. Why so few scans? 65 globally doesn't seem like a lot.
I think mainly, Larry, is because the cost of acquiring it. It's the most expensive scanner in the world.
It's millions.
Oh, multi-millions.
Yeah, and so how did you find out about the scan? What attracted you to it?
The guy that invented it was a PhD like me, and we were all on the same kind of course to try to figure out how do we see this disease fundamentally at the earliest beginning. And with this scan, we can see it when it's 0.5 millimeters. That's less than a little piece of grain of sand on the seashore. It's amazing.
John, with heart disease, how big a role does genetics play in it?
Well, that's the nice thing about being a scientist, Larry, is that where the science has taken me over the last 10 years is the genetics aspects. And we've identified 5 genes that can determine whether you do or don't have this plaque. And we're finding some astounding things that it's not just about, we thought that genetically, if you got the gene, it's Katie bar the door, you're going to get whatever that gene does. What we've discovered is that's not necessarily so, that some of these genes have switches on them. So maybe it's a 2-step process. Not only do you have the gene, but if you have a gene that codes for this plaque in your arteries in your heart, is that switch on? And if it's on, then you are going to get it. But the key is, if it's on, what can we do to turn it back off? Or if it's off, what can we do to keep it off so it never gets turned on? So we're in that particular phase of science now, and it's so exciting because if we can find the answers to those questions, then now we can prevent heart attacks.
Well, I've shared with you in the past. I'll share it again now. I'm pretty big. I sort of take an approach that you cannot manage what you don't keep track of, in business and in your health. So if you don't do blood work, it's hard to manage what your body needs or what it has. And I've gotten to where I do a very advanced blood panel now. And in that blood panel, they actually do some DNA testing. And in Brenda's case, it's based off a measurement of 1 to 4 in these various categories. So I'm what's called a 3-2, which means I'm going to die at some point, but it's probably not going to be heart disease.
Right.
She is what's a 4-4, which means that her children will be 4-4s. And obviously her parents must have been either 4-3s or 4-4s, where she is high genetic code for Alzheimer's and heart disease.
Right.
Yet her behaviors, her habits.
Right.
At age 45, she went and had a scan at ViaScan.
Right.
And you were very pleased. She had 0. She scored 0, which is a good score. And in fact, I think you said at her age, she might have been in the top 1 or 2%
right.
On your test.
Right.
Now, then I had the test, and it's what's interesting. So genetically, according to that blood panel, I'm a 3-2. He's saying, yeah, you're probably going to die someday, but not of a heart attack. Yet, I was an 11. I remember my score was an 11, which is still not bad.
Right.
But you sort of, like you said, you see the tiniest things. And if I remember correctly, what I found most interesting about the ViaScan is its early detection. I could be wrong, but I'm going off memory, is like 5 years ahead. So like you can see things that most people might not have seen up to 5 years.
Absolutely.
So it's this little tiny, it's like, wow, let's look at this, Larry. You're an 11. Now the question is, can I go to a 9? Can I go to an 8? Or
Absolutely.
am I going to be 11 forever
or
higher?
No, we see that the whole why we go through it is exactly what you say. You can't fix what you don't measure. So when these people come in for the ViaScan, they get a score. Then they're told what medical science says, not what John Duncan says. What does medical science say will shrink, stop, or slow this process that if you don't do what science says it grows 40% a year. So you're left with a fork in the road experience. Do I want to try to do the right things and take care of this, or do I just eat, drink, and be merry and take my chances? Well, the wise thing to do would be to pay attention if you want to live long and live well.
And correct me, because my mind, it's been a year. If someone has good insurance and they want to do the heart scan, is there a chance that insurance would cover that?
You know, Larry, I got a law passed in Texas that we're the only state in the United States, and in fact, they did a documentary that if the people would like to watch, I think it should win some Academy Award. It was one of the best documentaries that I've ever seen. It's called The Widowmaker, and it chronicles why prevention is not a focus in America, and basically it's because the focus is on profits. You know, the drug companies, the hospitals, the insurance companies. It's all about money and not about people, not about public health.
It's disingenuous.
It is. And so what this documentary shows is we have the technology like MyScan that we can see it early. We have the medical science looking at molecular genetics that shows that once found, treatment can shrink, stop, or slow. So, we live in the golden age of prevention. We just need to allow it to take root.
And so if you live in Texas, there's a good chance insurance will cover the heart scan.
It will, by mandate, by law. In 2009, I got a law passed. I worked with the legislator, and he introduced it. I helped him write the language. I testified before the subcommittee, and Governor Perry at the time signed this legislation called the Texas Heart Bill.
Here's the good news. It's when we come back, people are going to find out it's not expensive anyway.
That's
so
right.
Even if your insurance doesn't cover it or you don't have insurance, it becomes your best insurance policy to get the scan. When we come back, I really want to get into the scan because you talked about something just a moment ago that really, science doesn't lie, but neither do you. So not only do they get the scan, there's a wellness component that they get after the scan. So I think my scan took 15 minutes. But then you gave me time, and I know that you give everybody the same amount of time if need be or more. But I got to sit down with you, and I said, walk me through, this whole your wellness approach. And I have to tell you, I've been doing this show for 33 years. As you know, I've written 3 books primarily on food, recipes. Philosophically, we're identical.
Right.
And exercise-wise, as you know, I realize that there's a lot of people doing CrossFit and heavy lifting, and some are doing intense running. But I'm just like, move your body. Walk around your office or your apartment complex. Just move. Get on the floor, do a few muscle-building exercises. We'll get you to some higher intensity down the road, but right now let's just do something.
Right.
John Duncan's my guest. We have a lot more to talk about when we return right here on KRLD. Yeah, I was just talking. John Duncan's my guest, and it's just brilliant to have this ecosystem of resources in my life. So when it comes to heart health and just real good scientific research, I have John. John's a research scientist, like I said. We were talking about weight circumference, and you deal with that a lot. And it's sort of the reason I went with this Blue Jean Challenge promotion is, I got tired of telling people hearing people say, I need to lose 30 pounds, I need to lose 40 pounds. It's so negative. Or even telling people lose weight and all these, fitness fad frauds. They promise you everything, deliver nothing. So I thought, let's just do pant sizes. Let's drop a pant size because it's a good feeling. It's a good sign too. And it's a good message. And now where does that sort of BMI waist circumference, you see so many people, do you see a correlation between weight circumference and possibly heart issues?
Larry, there's no doubt your Blue Jean Challenge is pure science because most of the chronic diseases, whether it's diabetes or hypertension or heart disease or even cancers, is because of too much fat in your abdominal area.
Visceral fat.
Visceral fat.
So if you're listening right now, and John, please, if I'm wrong, correct me. I have no problem being corrected. There's subcutaneous fat. That's fat underneath your skin.
Right.
And then there's the visceral fat. This is fat that sort of
around
collects
the organs.
in the organs, and obviously lipid fat in the blood.
Right.
But that organ fat is really unhealthy fat.
Right. Well, with the scan that we do that you were talking about, the heart scan, we do a body scan to look for cancers and gallstones and kidney stones and things like that. So when we scan the abdominal area, then we see all this visceral fat around the kidneys, around the gallbladder, around the pancreas. And so that fat deposition, it's not just inert, Larry. They secrete hormones, chemicals, and the hormones and chemicals that fat tissue secrete is not good for your health. It leads to cancers, leads to diabetes, leads to heart attacks.
I forgot. It took this long in the show to remind people it's not just a heart scan, it's a body scan. You even do colonoscopies can be done with the scan, and they're not invasive like the traditional. Is that correct?
That's right. We go high tech on all kinds of scans that can be life-saving. We do a virtual colonoscopy that we use a scan and not a scope. We don't put you to sleep, no anesthesia, no scope inserted, but we can see polyps, colon cancers, inflammation. It's high-tech technology at its
Can
finest.
you get the whole kit and caboodle? Like because last time I got the heart, if I wanted to, could I? Because I'm at that age. I haven't had a colonoscopy in probably 10 years.
Right.
Probably do is what I'm thinking. 57, and just again one of those things you don't really know until something wrong happens.
That's right.
But and does it do body fat too?
It does everything. So you hold your breath for 30 seconds. We do a heart scan. You hold your breath the second time for 30 seconds. We do the body scan. The virtual colonoscopy takes a little bit more time to do it, maybe 5 minutes total. But it's a quick, simple, inexpensive test that we can get state-of-the-art information.
And what's interesting, and it's just a guy thing, women are so much more proactive, and guys with the colonoscopy, the whole, just it's a mental thing. And so it's easier just to avoid doing it rather than have the invasive thought of doing it. And yours is simple and easy.
Well, it's to every listener's advantage, Larry, that if they got some issue, any disease that's found, heart disease or cancer found at stage 1, will probably allow you to live long and live very well, and it's the least expensive to treat. If you wait for disease to get advanced, stage 4 heart disease or cancer, you're going to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars, or at worst, you're going to pay with your life.
Yeah, I have a mentor, a father figure, a beloved man who's played a big role in my life. He lives in Vegas. It's Joe Morrow, and he's dying. He'll die this month, and they caught the cancer at high levels, 3 or 4, and he never knew it. It was because of his he was exposed to asbestos as a construction worker in New York, so it got into the lungs and stuff. And had he had a scan, I saw him a year ago. I was in Vegas to visit him and his wife, and had he had that scan a year ago or a year and a half ago, it might have been stage 2 or stage 1, and it would have made a big difference. And
Larry, we've been a pioneer at ViaScan.
I know you have.
Leading the way. We've detected all kinds of cancers, lung, pancreatic, deadly cancers when found late when you're symptomatic. If you wait till you have symptoms and they tell you have cancer, the next word out of the doctor's mouth is going to be something you don't want to hear. You got 6 weeks or 8 weeks to live.
It just happened. Another friend of mine, maybe it's John, we're at that age. I don't know if you're experiencing this too. Just at that age where you hear these stories from friends. Like my friend, his sister, pancreatic cancer, they gave her 3 months to live.
Well, our stories with pancreatic cancer, we found at stage 1, and that person is 12 years cancer-free. I think that's a good story.
Without a doubt. And you have plenty of them. And you know what? Let's do this. I have one more segment left. When we come back, let's tell them the special, what the price of the heart scan is if they say KRLD or the Larry North Show, and let's at least touch on 1 or 2 really heartfelt stories that maybe happened in the last year. And we'll do that right after this. Larry North here on the Better You Show. Hope everyone's having a wonderful Sunday. My guest is John Duncan, a good friend, a regular guest. Always just, man, your passion just gets me excited. I just always feel good when you're on this show because I know there's one person that's going to benefit. I've been getting some emails. People need to know how they get a hold of you. So it's so easy. It's 123bodyscan.com. That's 123bodyscan.com. There's a lot of good information at the website. The main office is in Las Colinas, which was strategically put there because people fly in from all over the country to get a ViaScan with John Duncan. He's actually, in his ecosystem, is pretty well known and pretty famous for doing these scans. Now, they're normally, I wouldn't say it's pricey, but the good news is if you're a listener to the show, you're going to get a Valentine discount. What kind of special can we offer them, John?
Well, Larry, only for your listeners, I would offer them a buy one, get one free.
Oh, that's huge.
That's huge. We've never done.
Oh, my God. Listen, I've known you a long time. That's a pretty big deal. So
yeah.
You come in with someone important to you, be it a spouse, a brother, a sister, a best friend.
It's Valentine's Day, so buy one, get one free.
Okay.
And so the normal charge on a body scan, a heart scan, and a body scan that tells you about your risk of heart attack and early detection of cancers, aneurysm, gallstones, kidney stones. I mean, it's so comprehensive. Normally, it costs you $4,000 or $5,000 at
Easily.
a local hospital. Our normal cost is $9.95. So here you're going to buy one for $9.95, get one free. So your cost is under $500. That's unheard of on a multi-million-dollar scanner.
John, I would pay, if I didn't know you and I wasn't in the business I'm in, I would pay you $500 just to get your wellness information. I'm serious, because it's good. It's helpful.
Well, we just had our first person fly in from Albania, so that's
crazy.
One of the far reaches of the earth.
So it's a 2-for-1. It's basically $500 a person. You get the body scan, you get the consultation, and you get peace of mind.
Absolutely.
And there are going to be some people, just bear with me, folks. There will be some people that just because of the law of the numbers speak for themselves. Hopefully, you'll get a great score. You'll have peace of mind. You'll get some consultation. But there are some people that, after that scan, you have to be very upfront with them.
Well, I tell people that you'll either get peace of mind or a plan of action. Either way, it's a win-win.
I like that.
And, this is the same scan that we scan politicians, Hollywood movie stars, actors, entertainers, athletes, CEOs of the largest corporations in the world. And to get this price is really a good deal.
Well, and that's what people need to realize. You could go to a hospital or even, and listen, you have, it's important too, I think, to also note, you have relationships really all over, but certainly in North Texas and Oklahoma, you're not like, there's no just one alliance with one cardiologist.
That's right.
You're like all over the place.
Well, we send them. I just had a baseball player, a Major League Baseball player, that his cardiologist had two of them, one in Maryland because he played for the Orioles, and one in Los Angeles. So I knew both of them personally, got them hooked up, no problem.
Wow. So you really are connected there with the heart. Well, really awesome stuff. I have a couple minutes. Just any stories stick out over the last year, either with one of my listeners or a KRLD listener, or just somebody who happened to come in, maybe just a concerned daughter over her father saying, "Dad, I really want you to do that." I'm just coming up with something. Is there a story that you could share?
Well, Larry, I had a lady come in last week, and it's my custom. I always ask them, what brings you into ViaScan? And this lady said, well, you may not remember, I came in a couple years ago with my husband. He got the scan. I did not. I got mine today. But he said, when my husband got a scan, you sit down and you reviewed all the pictures with him and said that he needed to immediately follow up with his doctor because he had a lot of plaque in his heart, that you were concerned that he needed bypass surgery. So he did. He followed your advice. He immediately followed up with his doctor, got additional tests, confirmed that he did indeed have a major blockage and got bypass surgery. She said, you saved my husband's life, and I thank you so much.
Wow.
And then we had another one that came in, a dad and his daughter, and he was feeling fine, and he had a gigantic aneurysm that was about to pop that needed immediate attention. And if it didn't receive immediate attention, he was not going to live long on this earth. Well, and so I told his daughter to take him immediately to the emergency room, and she did. He had the surgery, and he's doing fine.
I want to share a feel-good story with you. So one of my trainers, he's actually my fitness director in Westlake, my big club. His name is Shane Massey. Well, 2 Mondays ago, I went to City Hall with him and his family and the man whose life he saved while riding a stationary bike. The fire department and the police department were there, and they gave Shane an award and a certificate. They said, Shane, had you not acted quickly with a defibrillator and just did all the steps correctly, Shane's wife teaches CPR. So he was real astute. He knew his stuff. And they said, this man would have died had it not been for you. So I want to give a shout out to Shane Massey. I'm so, in my whole 33 years, that's my most proudest moment. And it had to do with somebody else.
Amen.
John Duncan, thank you.